students, welcome to M is for Morocco. We just listened to the author read aloud of The Storyteller by Evan Turk, as well as the actual Moroccan storyteller, Mehdi El Ghaly, who shared a wonderful Moroccan tale with us. So now we are going to have our little book chat, and we'd love for you to join us. Okay, so why do you guys think that we share information through stories? What is effective about that?
Harder to forget.
Okay, so it makes it easier to remember when you share it in a story format. Okay, what else?
Then other people can learn the story also.
Okay, so it's easier to share further along then. If you have a specific tale to share, then you can pass on the message more easily.
Yeah,
okay.
And also then you can do like voices too.
Oh, cool, yeah, so you can add in...
It's not real, but you don't.
Well, you can, if you're reading it aloud, you can add in the voices too, right? So
I mean...
Or if you're just reading it in your head. Oh, yeah. But the story format in general allows you to add in things about the characters. It allows you to add in things about the place that makes it more memorable and helps you feel like you're involved in it, right? Like you're right there in the story, which is pretty cool. Why else do we share stories? What do you like about stories? They're fun. Yeah, that's a great reason. In fact, Mehdi even mentioned in his story, right, that the person who is sharing the tales, he likes to be the jester just because it's funny. He likes to make people laugh, right? And stories can do that too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, he said he might annoy one person, but he makes 10 others laugh.
Exactly, yeah. So in Moroccan culture, it's important to share those stories out loud, right? Not just have them in a written form, but it's really a verbal tradition. It's a spoken tradition of storytelling, right? So what is helpful about that? What is helpful about sharing stories out loud?
It's harder to forget.
Okay, it's easier to remember if you hear it in your head. You can hear those voices, like you said.
And see it too.
Yeah, you might see their expressions. We noticed that both of the authors, both the storyteller and the author, they added in some voices, some emotion into it, right? So it makes it more enjoyable to listen to when we hear someone else's take on it, when we hear their interpretation of it. And then we also kind of have multiple touch points, right? We can hear it, we can see it. It involves more of our senses. Yeah. What else is cool about hearing a story out loud?
Then you can tell it to a lot of people.
Oh, you can tell it to a big group, right? Yeah, it's not just limited to the people you're right next to or the people you talk to all the time. You can share it more widely, and they can share it with other people, and those people can share it with other people. So the story can travel, right, when it's told out loud, which is pretty cool. Yeah. What were some similarities and differences between the actual real-life storyteller, Mehdi, and the storyteller in Evan Turk's book, in the book The Storyteller? What were some similarities and differences?
They were both in Morocco.
Okay, they're both in Morocco.
They were both storytellers.
Okay, they're both storytellers. They're both sharing a tale. Were they sharing the story for the same purpose? No, you don't think so? You do think so? What do you think? What was their purpose in sharing the story?
So other people could hear it.
Okay, so other people could hear it, so that's similar, right? What was maybe something that was a little different?
Yeah, so that people could laugh.
Oh, okay, so one was specifically to help people laugh and have fun, right?
Yeah.
One might have been to communicate more of a historical story or teach a little bit of a lesson, right? So a little bit different in that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and he said, the Joker. I don't remember his name, but he said if people do wrong things, they will have an example.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, were they both fiction or nonfiction? What
They're
was
both fiction.
They're both fiction. Okay. What did one seem maybe like it could a little more realistic, like it could happen in real life, and one?
Storyteller, like it had.
Which storyteller? The real life storyteller or the book, the storyteller?
The book, The Storyteller. Because when he finished stories like there's water in his.
Okay, so that one was maybe a little more fantastical or magical, right? Whereas the real life storytellers seemed like maybe a little bit more realistic story that we could connect to.
Yeah.
Both have their merits, right? Whether they're a little bit more magical or a little bit more realistic, that we can connect with them on different levels, right? Which is pretty cool. All right, and then finally, do you guys know any real life storytellers in your lives? Okay, your Ajay, your grandfather, he tells a lot of stories, right? I think grandparents are great for that, to share stories, and a lot of times they share them out loud, right? And
Ajahs are really funny.
yeah, they can be funny, they can sometimes teach you lessons. Do you know any other? What's that?
Ajahs are mostly to teach us lessons.
Okay, so they might be like a morality tale to teach us a lesson.
And once he told us this story about a bird and like two birds that their house got destroyed in a rainstorm, but then there was another bird that let them come to their house so they could have a house also, but then they ate all the food and they pooped all over the house.
Oh my goodness.
So, yeah.
So they can be funny stories too, right? Or they can teach lessons.
And the other bird that didn't have their house destroyed, they got them back, and they pooped all over the other.
Oh goodness. Yeah, so lots of different kind of stories, right? Do you know any other storytellers in your life?
You guys?
Oh, okay, your parents can be storytellers? Yeah. And does someone necessarily, do they have to be the ones to tell you the story? Or can you ask questions?
You can do both.
Yeah, you can do both, right? Maybe you could get a story if you ask questions, right? How about my last question is, are you guys storytellers?
We can be.
You can be, right? Yeah? How can you be a storyteller?
We can tell people stories.
Okay, you can tell people stories about what?
About animals.
About animals, okay. What else could you tell stories about?
Places.
Places? Have you ever come home from school and told me, and this is what happened on the playground today?
Oh yeah.
Is that a form of storytelling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever said, come out to the backyard, I'm making this thing, and then told me about what you're making?
Yeah.
That's a form of storytelling. And you
Well,
can either be a written storyteller or you can share it out loud.
Well, there's something that we didn't make in the backyard.
What's that?
The apricot on the tree.
Okay, you could tell stories about things you didn't create also, right?
Like you found.
That you found. Those are all forms of storytelling. So my challenge to you guys today is we're going to come up with our own story. You can decide how you want to be a storyteller. If you want to be a verbal storyteller, like telling a story out loud, or if you want to be a written storyteller, and what you want to tell your story about. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, thanks guys. It was good to chat.
Thank you.